three stages of being wired differently. 3 stages of being wired differently. I want to talk exactly about these 3 stages. I want you to, first of all, take a notice of just how beautiful God has created things. He's perfectly created things for us and you and all of our surroundings, and I'm just grateful for all those things. But I want to talk to you about those 3 stages of being wired differently. These things that set us apart from other people and the things that I wrote about. And I want you to understand that these 3 stages of wired differently are the cusp and the grasp of everything that we're trying to accomplish in this journey of being wired different and dealing with your special uniqueness. So the first stage of being wired differently is called the genetic stage. The genetic stage is clearly a stage that this is what we're born with. The second stage is called the attitudinal stage. This is the attitude that we've developed over time by our rearing and our raising and being mentored over the first 8 to 12 years of our life. And lastly, the third and final stage is actually called the actualization stage, the enlightenment stage, this piece where we deal with who we are and how we are and what makes us so fundamentally different and how this uniqueness is that we have. So the first one, let's talk about genetic. Genetic is a clear path that everybody, for the most part, starts off when they're born. When they're born, you have a genetic pattern that God specifically gave you. And of course, everybody's wired differently from that perspective. So I want to answer that question when people say, of course, we're all wired differently. Well, yes, we are. We come out of our mother and we are definitely wired differently. All of us are. So differently that we were cooking up 250 million neurons a minute while we were being birthed. That whole gestation period, 8 months of cooking 250 million neurons a minute. When we come out, we have roughly 100 billion neurons. 100 billion neurons. What are all these neurons? They're in your brain, and they're nerves, and nerves that connect. And when these nerves connect, you keep them, and they form your personality trait. Those neurons are what make you. By the time you're 15, your neurons are going away. You're not growing anymore. They're just basically going away. Use it or lose it. So that's why children can learn songs so fast, play instruments, just learn so much, so fast, so easy compared to what we do as older people. So that genetic side is clearly in all of us, and that's how that works. Well, I want to talk to you, secondly, the second stage of being wired differently is exactly the piece that I want to talk to you mostly about. That's this attitudinal disorder. That we were cooked up special, and we were formed special, and certain things in those first years up to 15, 16 happen to us. We just do things differently. We think differently. We love differently. We share differently. We push harder differently. We do one more rep differently. We're devastated when our friends are not exactly happy. We're just different. We do things differently. We get up at 4 in the morning. We ruminate about thoughts, and sometimes we're probably depressed, and sometimes we're not. I mean, we're different. We're hard chargers. We're special in that regards because of that genetic wired differently stage 1, we came out of that stage differently than many of the other people in this world. And I want you to embrace that uniqueness that you have, that you're special. This attitudinal disorder of wired differently is what the book's about. That's me. That's me. I'm not going to hide it anymore. I'm different. I do things differently. Hate me today, love me tomorrow. I want you to be able to bet on me, not love me all the time. Of course I want you to like me. I'm insecure like everybody else. But here's the deal. I'm different. I do things differently. I want to collect you people because you're that way. It's okay. So we push through being born in the genetic side, and now we spend all of our life trying to reconcile why we're so different, why things bother us, why we push so hard, why we're basically high achievers and do the things we need to do and make a wake of things and all those stuff. But lastly, the last stage of being wired differently is this actualization stage, the stage where you actually realize how different you are. And you realize that you do make mistakes because you push too hard. You realize you do kind of step on people because you're a pusher and a hard driver. And it's not on purpose most of the time, I'm sure, but you just do it. It happens. And sometimes we do things wrong. Matter of fact, a lot of times we don't get everything right. But more importantly, a lot of times we drift because we're such a hard charger, and we drift. And we lose the fact that we were brought up one way. We lose the fact that we did have a focus on one way. And it just gets away from us. And that's bad. That's the land of quo. And we need to recognize that land of quo. We need to recognize that our wired differentiality, our attitudinal disorder phase, stage 2 of us, has put us in a spot where we have got to make some sense out of what we've become, where we're going, and how we're getting there. We have to look at that drift and we have to correct it. And if you're willing to look for the drift, and you're willing to correct it, and you're willing to say, I'm sorry, and you're willing to do better the next time, and you're willing to clean up the path or the mess that you've made before in the past, if you're willing to do all those things, then you have actualized the drift. You have reached the pinnacle of wired differentiality. You have reached this wired differently stage 3. 1 is genetic, 2 is attitudinal disorder, and 3 is actualization. I love it. I lived it, and I'm wired differently. Are you? Come on, follow me in this. Wired differently. We can do this thing called life.